They anticipated chaos and you to break under their control. So, they hurled everything at you. They assumed that their falsehoods, psychological games, and purposeful attempts to break you will send you into a spiral. However, you responded to their might with silence, which is much more terrifying for them than fire. You did not plead. You did not reply. You did not even recognize their attempts to unsettle you. They were broken by it. They couldn't understand your calm, but they couldn't dismiss it either. They underestimated the strength of your maturity. They are now drowning in the aftermath, haunted by the realization that they never had any influence over you in the first place. Because you did something unexpected, you've twisted their games to your advantage. They are riveted, enthralled, and fixated on you, and they can't stop thinking about you right now. They set up the trap, watching and waiting for you to walk into it to see how you would react under pressure. They used insults as bait, misinterpreted your words, and wreaked havoc. Every move was designed to set you off, draw you into their drama, and get a reaction because they could adjust the story if you respond. If you responded, they may play the victim, hoping you would fracture or shatter, to demonstrate that they were accurate. But you didn't. You didn't move like a bored concert goer. You saw their tantrums play out. You failed to offer an explanation. You did not dispute. You did not provide an explanation. Your silence was louder than your words. You've just relocated, went forward, moved gently and quietly. They're now unclear what to do. Your reaction was vital to their overall plan. However, you made no offer to them. No emotional outbursts. Not a last-ditch attempt to prove oneself. Don't pursue. Simply not there. And there is a deficit. It's really loud. Because they are left to cope with their own mess for the first time. There's no one to control. No one to manage. Nobody is at blame. They were the only ones drowning in the disaster they created. The dread has begun because they lost control of you the moment they were unable to regulate your emotions. They have nothing. If they are not in power, something has changed. They can feel it too. The strength they had possessed vanished, as did the energy from which they drew it. The cause of their feelings, which you unintentionally offered, cut off any communication. They are hungry now. They first persuaded themselves that it did not matter. They put up a show for the world, seeming indifferent. They blogged more often, laughed louder, and surrounded themselves with distractions. However, all of this was a facade to hide the dread caused by the reality. They are suffocated by the reality. They also need you. They took refuge in your generosity. Their medicine represented your vitality. You were focused on their oxygen. They are trying to breathe now that it is gone. They are unable to find what you gave them, regardless of where they look at the time. The retreat starts. The late-night meditations, the growing guilt, the realization that you were underestimated. They assumed you would always be available, helpful, and present. They felt you needed them. But they were wrong. And you left. And it's so silent now that you've left. What is the worst? It's karma to see you achieve even without them. Because you are blazing, not just gone. You are upping the bar. You are expanding in unforeseen ways. The most disturbing thing is seeing the person they tried to break grow indestructible. They can't quit thinking about you right now. They miss you now. They understand your worth today. They can now realize what they've lost. Do not be fooled. However, this is not affection. This is not progress. It's a panic. It starts modestly. Your post got a random like. How have you been? This is a meaningless message. Suddenly, a mutual friend reaches out to check if you're still available. Takes incremental planned actions. However, this isn't about making things right. Control is the problem here. The fact that you don't irritate them disturbs them. They are bothered that you have moved on. They dislike the fact that you recovered power. Their ego is screaming because they would have to face what they never wanted to admit they had lost. If you're really finished with them and have closed the door, and they are obsessed by that knowledge, they plot, then they are manipulators. They make up excuses to return to your life. Perhaps they claim to have changed and are playing the victim. Perhaps they use drama to evoke a reaction. Perhaps they need closure all of a sudden. But what they actually need is a path back in. However, if they really appreciated you, they would never have put you in a position that required you to leave in the first place. Furthermore, they haven't changed just because they regret abandoning you. This is a test, a trap, a cycle, just asking to happen again. So, will you fall for it? They have been exposed by your growth. The distance you constructed, the peace you maintained, and the dignity you restored are now working against them. They didn't expect you'd really depart. They never dreamed you could achieve without them. However, you are untouchable, unreachable, and moving in a way that they cannot control or foresee. And now they're exposing their true selves. They depicted you as the problem for a long time. They convinced themselves, and maybe others, that you were the one who was unstable, excessively theatrical, and unable of letting things go. They represented you as being too emotional, sensitive, and excessive. They also believed their own lies for a while. However, something seems unusual now that you've left owing to the pandemonium. The same tendencies, detrimental practices, and acts continue to occur. You did not take them with you. They are also being forced to acknowledge that it was never you, something they never wanted to admit. They were always the ones, even now when you are no longer their scapegoat. And that understanding, this is unacceptable. They refuse to accept it. They don't want to admit that they were the problem all along. They lash out. Instead, they attempt desperately to modify the narrative. You are referenced more than is necessary. They bring up your name in irrelevant talks. They try to find out how you're doing by quietly reaching out to mutual connections. If you're still worried, if you're still thinking about them, they're unable to accept the idea that you're really over it. And they crumble the more you triumph quietly. It's like a mirror, allowing them to see themselves clearly for the first time. Your growth, advancement, ability to function without them, and what they see disturbs them. It hurts them to know that you were never the one who stood in their way of success. Actually, the only thing that kept them afloat was you. And they're sinking now. Others are starting to notice the cracks. The same friends, family, and spectators who first believed their version of events are now beginning to grasp the truth. Because the deception is no longer plausible until you accept the guilt. Their lies are collapsing. They are getting caught up in their inconsistencies. Worst of all, they're aware of it. They notice the shift. They feel the crushing weight of their own actions. They perceive your absence in surprising ways. However, you do not need to do anything at all. You do not have to divulge the facts, exact punishment, or expose them. That's what their own actions are doing for you. They realize that the roles have been reversed. They can't stop thinking about the one they tried to discard. The person who departed without turning back is the one they expected to appeal, and their old power is in front of them. It is crumbling. They are now obsessive, watching, stalking, and hunting for anything that can revive their relationship with you. However, nothing is effective. They try to figure out where they lost you by reliving earlier encounters. They hunt for signs of problems on your social media sites. However, all they find is someone who seems to be content without them. And the most agonizing aspect is that they predicted your agony. They thought leaving would shatter you. That was how much power they believed they possessed. But you rose instead, and you were impenetrable. They are currently dissolving. Moreover, the addiction is real. They desire your presence, enthusiasm, and attention. However, the supply is no longer accessible, and they are disoriented, agitated, and angered. Now nothing feels the same. There isn't an effective enough distraction. Nobody fresh has filled the vacuum. They recognize deep down that their connection with you is special, and it's just the beginning of their downfall. Because karma never forgets, those who thought they could take your place are now coping with their own emptiness. People who took you for granted are now dealing with unbearable guilt, as are those who attempted to hurt you as their own lives fall apart. They were watching. You saw the worst event following that. Your name is still revered. Even if they do not admit it, they are still talking about you. I'm still curious about you, still hoping for another chance. However, that door is now firmly closed since you have moved on. Furthermore, they are unable to avoid the consequences of their own actions. Furthermore, they are powerless to alter it. I choose one. Now look at your life. Check out ours. You've resumed your normal life. We're back at our place. Regardless, you are unlucky. I am not a member of the Obsidian Inner Order. Consider weekly group calls with a small number of people that are recorded and available at any time for your education. Our personal quarrel. Not only is it bustling, but it's also alive, brimming with inventions, ideas, and that unstoppable chosen energy. And welcome to Chosen Singles, where soul mates meet via cosmic alignments rather than trite pickup lines. For all of you romantics out there, if that isn't enough, members of Star Chamber get access to private chats with genuine selected individuals who have survived the most excruciating ordeals. Furthermore, our video specials are too provocative, unrefined, and spicy for YouTube. This extends beyond a mere community. This is a spiritual and soul revolution. Check your direct messages now. Back to me with the joining link. Destiny notices it after reading the description rather than just swiping right. The Obsidian Inner Order is characterized by ascension, transmitted mystical feelings, and a chosen existence. You don't need them, and that knowing destroys them. The belief that you were emotionally, financially, or mentally reliant on them was the cornerstone of their power. They lived off the idea that you needed their presence, affirmation, and acceptance. However, you have now disproven them. You were able to escape their previous level of access. Retracted. The emotional wellspring on which they relied had shattered, as had the money they sought to use against you. Not worth it. They assumed that without them, you would struggle. They expected you to return with the stutter you raised. Instead, you performed acts that they did not expect. They are now struggling to catch up because they are terrified of your independence. Without them, every step you take serves as a reminder that they were never as important as they assumed. Each triumph you achieve without their help demonstrates that they had no genuine influence over you, and they feel jealousy, sorrow, or doubt every time they see you win since they only let you go after trying to break you. They are no longer able to endure it. They wait silently for signs of impending collapse. They hunt for cracks in your delight, expecting you will stumble. However, what they uncover is a person who has entered a new era of affluence, replete with new advantages, possibilities, and relationships. And they shrink as you grow, because nothing makes them angrier than watching you become everything. They tried to discourage you from becoming. Envy is now real. They won't admit it. They will pretend they don't care and seem disinterested. However, their conduct betrays the truth they are seeing. They hold animosity. They also know in their hearts that they will never be able to replace the person they have lost. If you would not let them back in, leave a comment stating that the door is permanently closed. Morning, evening, or between distractions. You are the concept. They can't get away. Your presence clings to them like a haunting tune. They cannot escape, no matter how hard they try to ignore it. They linger over your name as they go through their phones. They will never send the texts they prepare. They mentally replay the events, dissecting every term choice and blunder that led to this. They're also unable to move on. They can't find anybody or anything to replace what you gave them. Not because they refused to. You exuded a particular feel. It was unusual to see you. They didn't really understand your love till it was gone. The retreat is getting uncomfortable. They expected you to be devastated. They assumed that your absence would lead you to disintegrate. They expected you to reach out in a desperate effort to reclaim what had been lost. Rather, they are crumbling. It does not feel right. They are not impressed by new persons. Distraction is inadequate. The void is not filled by a replacement because they recognize deep down that their connection with you was not ordinary. There was no way they could just recreate it. They are still afflicted by this knowledge. Their actions betray them, even if they never say so. The stalker at night, with regular check-ins. When your name is called, the phony smiles come as they realize you've gone on. There is a dreadful silence because their greatest regret now is what they once took for granted. They despise the idea that they still want you because of you. You've already published them. This was always a lesson, not just a failure. You also didn't just depart. You changed. You haven't merely recovered. You climbed something far larger than what you left behind, is what you were bonded with. This was a redirection, not a rejection. What you couldn't see, God noticed. He was aware of the deception, ulterior motives, and load that was keeping you from going forward. And he made certain they let go of you when you refused to let go. Protection, not punishment. You were never intended to stay in situations that made you feel drained, and pouring into people who just took was never your objective. You were never supposed to shrink in order to fit in with their surroundings. Your benefits started to follow you as soon as you stopped seeking things that were not meant for you. The peace you are experiencing right now is divine alignment. The opportunities that lie ahead of you are God's favor. The new people in your life, they are a representation of your growth, and they struggle because you say they are now obligated to sit in the same energy they unleashed, not because you intended to injure them or exact payback. They must watch you get what they intended to avoid, and their actual punishment is that by departing, they feel they have taught you a lesson. Instead, God used it to teach them a lesson. Nothing they do can stop what is meant for you. You continue to win after being picked, aligned, and protected. They wished you defeat. They meant for you to suffer. Their intention was to be the cause of your failure. Instead, you became into their worst fear. Someone who not only survived, but thrived throughout their absence. Someone they can't contact anymore. Someone they can no longer influence. They are filled with jealousy. They see your success. You seem dazzling to them. They see prospects for you that they never thought you'd explore. It also burns because each success serves as a reminder of your inherent strength. They try to take your power away. They are now bitter and behave as if nothing matters. They do, however, observe. I will contact you when your name is called. Pay attention. I'm looking in private for any signs that you're experiencing trouble. Despite their greatest efforts, all they find is proof that they have lost a vital individual. And that understanding is choking them since their goals failed. They feel that casting you away will break you. They felt that turning people against you would lead to isolation. They thought you'd feel empty without them. Instead, you were set free by everyone. They attempted to ruin you. They sat in regret. Now you feel awful since they didn't show you gratitude when they could have. They regret not recognizing anything real and instead engaging in games. They regret pushing the one person who really cared away due to their ego, pride, and immaturity. What is the worst? You can't go back since you don't need them anymore. Furthermore, they must recognize that they will never see another version of you, and that the actual penalty is that you owe them nothing. Not another minute of your time, no explanation, and no second chance. Because the person they fooled is no longer living. The version of you that disregarded their rudeness, put up with their lies, and accepted their games failed. What remains is a person who recognizes their worth and cannot be dominated or deceived. They are terrified by it. They'll try to draw you back. They can't stand to see you free. It's not because they love you or have changed. They refuse to admit that you have outgrown them, that their leaving did not kill you, and that their hold over you was never genuine. However, this is when the cycle breaks. They were not sentenced to life. They were a lesson. They do not necessarily deserve to be in your future just because they were in your past. You do not return to what caused your failure. Reopening locked doors for a reason is not something you do. People who only miss you because they have lost control are not amusing. They are frightened by your progress. They are tormented by your silence. They are exposed due to your elevation. And that is exactly why you must persevere. Because the moment you turn back, you risk relapsing to the disorder you were trying to escape. When you succumb to their tricks, you stifle your own progress. You show them that you were never really gone. However, once you let them back in, you are no longer present and they are unable to reach you. They must accept defeat. This time, they were unable to contact you. You were no longer under their spell. They have lost you, the one thing they never expected to lose. They now have to cope with the truth that no argument can overcome your silence. The retribution you never had to seek is your success. They had no jurisdiction over you in the first place, as shown by your ascent. And as a result,